Hello and welcome back. My name is Brandon LaFrance, and in this tutorial we're going to get into the outliner in a little bit more detail than we have, and if we have time, some constraints that you may find useful in animating. Now the outliner can be found, you go up to Window, down to Outliner, and if we look at this scene, it's a pretty complex type character where he's multiple pieces and there's lots of little stuff. Now you'll notice when I click on these, when I select these, it highlights it in the outliner. In the outliner there is an item for every object in your scene. Now the first thing that you'll notice, or you'll notice when I point out, is I've got Rocket 02, 01, 03, 06, 05, 04, 09, not necessarily in order, although I've named them that. And then I have P-Cube 8, P-Cube 9, and P-Cube 10. The reason I would name these is just so that I know what it is if I need to find it in the outliner, which makes things faster when you have, this guy and maybe a city scene that he's destroying or what have you, and you've got a whole huge lot of items. So what I'm going to do is in the outliner I will double click on this, and this is going to be Rocket 08, and hit enter, and that will rename it. Now in this lesson you don't necessarily have to try and keep up with me. I want to go over a lot of stuff, and then in the next lesson I'll kind of show you some other applications for it, or how to model with these things in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one. This will be number 7. Now watch, if I type Rocket 07 and then I click off of it, it won't accept it. You have to make sure and hit enter or return to confirm the name. And P-Cube 10, we're going to call this Missile. I know, not very amazing imaginary names, but that's fine. So now, one of the reasons this outliner is incredibly useful is for parenting objects. And what I mean by parenting is, for example, the body here. If I move the body and put on my move tool with W, and I move the body, you can see that my missiles all look kind of like loaves of Italian bread or French bread, and the legs aren't actually attached, the arms aren't actually attached. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make the body the parent of the missiles. We'll start with that. So in the outliner, I'm going to click to select Rocket, left click on Rocket 02. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, hold Shift, and click at the bottom, and we'll select everything in between. Now if you click and drag with the middle mouse button, you can see that right now I've got 2 black lines, one above and one below my mouse, telling me that if I dropped it right now, it would parent the rockets to the left leg thigh piece. Now I've only got one line telling me I would move it in this hierarchy between the two. What I'm going to do is drag it all the way up to body, and when I see that those parallel lines, one on top and one below body, I'm going to let go of the middle mouse button. And you'll see they disappear from the outliner here, but I get a little plus sign in the left margin next to body. If I click on that, you'll see I have body, and then indented, it shows me all my rockets. Now this is driving me insane for some reason, that they're out of order, so I'm actually just going to middle click and drag and rearrange them. Now this is just organization on my part. Really has no bearing right now because I'm not changing the parents. I'm just rearranging them in order here. But what this has done is I can select my rockets, whatever rocket I feel like, but if I select its parent, that will select it too. So if I select the body, it selects the body, but it also selects all of the rockets, which are children of the body, and this big missile, which is a child of the body. So now, when I move the body the rockets and missiles go with it. So again, I'm going to grab the turret. I can either select it out here and then see, oh, okay, the turret's highlighted, so that's the one I want. Middle click, drag it to the body, and I could do the same with the legs and the arms as well, which I would probably do if I had a bigger scene where I needed to keep the legs and arms and all that separate from landscaping and all that lovely stuff. But for now, for this example, I'm just going to leave it as is. And this is helpful, sort of basic animation. Later we'll get into adding skeletons and all that, but for now, the way you parent things can help you out quite a bit in just basic animation. For instance, I have the left thigh here, or the right thigh, the right leg thigh, as I've named it. And if I take the right leg calf, which is the next piece, and drag that, and I'll parent it to the thigh, you'll see where my madness is going in a minute. And I expand that by clicking the plus sign, and then I grab the right leg foot and I drag that down with the middle mouse button down to the right leg calf. What that does for me, if I select the thigh, I get all of its children and its children's children all the way down. So I select the thigh, I get the thigh, the calf, and the leg. If I select the calf, I just get the calf and the foot. If I select the foot, I just get the foot. So, if I were, for instance, going to make him walk, I select my thigh, I can rotate it, okay, and the whole leg goes with it, so it's not at an awkward angle. Then I select my calf, and the foot goes with it as well. So I can rotate, and I can sort of aim on down the line for extending, and the opposite of extending on my leg. So that's helpful if you are going to animate without a skeleton. If you're going to put a skeleton in it, it's not necessary to parent it that way. In fact, I probably wouldn't. But so that's sort of parenting. The other thing I want to show you that's not the outliner, we can go ahead and close that since I have a couple of minutes left here. If you go up to the animation submenu, okay, if you go to the animation submenu, you'll see up at the top, at the very end, or third from the end here, constrain. Now, one thing I haven't pointed out before that I think I will now is most of the menus in Maya have this little double bar at the top, meaning I can click and drag and grab it, and I should be able to, if I just click on that actually, it will pop that menu out so I have it stays up here. So for now, I would also like to point out, if I go to the Curves tab, I'm just going to grab a circle, okay, and I'm going to draw it in the front view just so it's vertical, okay. The thing about these circles is you can see them, but when you render, they do not render, which makes them useful for creating controls. So I'm going to take this circle, and I'm actually going to basically make it look like his arm cannon is aiming at it. That seems to be good enough. Now what constraints do, they allow you to put controls on your animation, so rather than me having to grab the arm and rotate it and try and get it exactly, I can use some constraints to help me with that. Essentially, I'll show you what it does, and then in the next tutorial I will go ahead and show you sort of how to do it. Now, what I've done is I added an aim constraint. Now, wherever I move this circle around to, that's where he's going to aim. So essentially, I've made myself a little target. I can move that as far away as I want, and still, his gun stays attached to his body, so I can't screw that up, really. And, well, unless I do this. If I go this far, it rotates inside his body, as you can see there. But for the most part, I can put this as a target on whatever he's shooting at, and I'm guaranteed that his arm is going to point in the right direction. I'm guaranteed that I'm not going to sort of screw up and detach his arm from his body. So Constraints can be a very powerful tool in animating, and we will get into that in the next lesson.